Hales5656 asks, "Hey Jarek, I was just wondering how all this not calling you by your actual name thing came about." I have no clue what you're talking about. What's going on, guys? Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, and welcome back to another SR4 A, your boot-related questions and my answers to them, all pulled from my Instagram, SR4U_Josh. So if you'd like to ask a question for the next Q&A video, link down below in the description. Go follow me on Instagram. As always, if you guys enjoy the Q&A series and want to see it continue on the channel, don't forget to support this one with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on future content from me, new videos every single day, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You may have also noticed the Chelsea home shirt that I'm currently wearing, and a lot of you guys always ask what's a good place to get authentic jerseys from. Well, if you click the link down below in the description, there's a coupon code there as well where you can get a special price on this shirt and basically any shirt you can possibly imagine, blank, with a name and number customization, basically whatever you want. So if you're looking for a good deal on some shirts, link down below, go ahead and check it out. Should football kits have ACC? Actually, about 2 months ago, I put up a video sharing some ACC product ideas for Nike, some more serious than others, of course. And if you missed that video and want to check it out, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen. But one of those suggestions was adding ACC technology to the kits, the shirts, the shorts, the socks, whatever it may be. Even if it did nothing at all, which I really don't think that there's any kind of invisible technology that Nike could add to a shirt that would make it perform better versus a different shirt that didn't have ACC technology. I think based on how many people really believe that strongly in the whole ACC concept, it would actually do really well for the brand, and they'd probably sell a good amount of shirts based on that ACC technology inclusion. So I think it's a good idea. I wouldn't rule it out for the future of Nike football shirts, but do I think it's actually going to make a big difference? Probably not. Did you ever get a red card in a game? Surprisingly, no, and I say that due to the fact that I do sometimes maybe get a little bit more angry than I should in the heat of a match, but for the most part, I really am not one to go in for risky challenges, and I don't consider myself to be a dirty player. I've had plenty of yellow cards over the years, but those are mostly due to kind of accumulation of fouls throughout the course of a match, sometimes going shoulder to shoulder with somebody a little bit too hard. I am guilty of, but that has only ever resulted in a yellow card or two once in a while, but no red cards throughout my career, if you can call it a career. Which boots would provide the most leather-like feel but still being synthetic for easier care? Unfortunately, that's a style of football boot that has kind of just gone away over the last couple of years. So I really wouldn't say that there's anything currently available that is synthetic but has a quality leather-like sensation. The last boot to really do that well, in my opinion, was the CTR 360 Maestri series, 1, 2, and 3. All excellent boots, but pretty much everything has gone with knitted uppers, mesh-based uppers, and just thin synthetics, none of which really feel all that leather-like. So I would really recommend, if you're looking for a leather-like feel, just buy a pair of leather boots. You mentioned how a synthetic boot that has the feel of leather gives you that benefit of the leather-like feel, but without the need to care for it. And that is kind of a misconception, I would say, with modern leather football boots. And modern leather just meaning basically a leather boot that is a current model, not necessarily something like a Tiempo Legend 7 Elite, where clearly it's a modernized take of a leather shoe. But modern leather boots in general don't require the extreme care that they perhaps did require maybe going back 15 or 20 years now. The treatment process, the liners, they're a lot better than they used to be. So the whole leather cream application thing isn't really necessary as long as you clean your boots frequently and you let them dry out properly, which you should be doing regardless of whether or not your boots are leather or synthetic. So really, I think if you want a leather-like feel, your best course of action is to actually buy a leather pair of boots. Hey Jack, do you think there is a perfect boot? And if so, which boot is it, or which boot was it? I really don't think there's a perfect boot. Definitely I like some more than others, and I recently put out a video sharing what I consider to be the top 5 best performing football boots currently on the market. And I guess when you're talking about the perfect boot, those 5 would be the closest thing to being perfect, in that all the characteristics that they have are all very positive, and it's difficult to criticize the boots from a performance perspective. And that's really what I consider the perfect boot to be, one that has every performance characteristic going for it. But the issue with that is there's always going to be a personal preference aspect to football boots as well. So you're never going to have one product that is perfect, because I would kind of consider that to be a boot that everyone would like and a boot that would legitimately put you at some kind of advantage versus somebody else that is not wearing the perfect football boot. And that product simply does not exist. And I truly don't think that there ever will be a perfect boot. Should the Superfly be canceled? This maybe is a bit of a hot take, but hear me out on this one. If the next generation of Mercurials is going to be like the current generation, where the Vapor and the Superfly are exactly the same boot, one with a collar, one without, that being really the only difference, then yes, I think they should kill the Superfly, or at least give it a little bit of a break for one generation of Mercurial. Now, before you get all angry, here's my explanation. I was always a fan of the Superfly line from the perspective that it took what was great about the Mercurial Vapor and then kind of elevated it in a way where you got the latest tech or the latest concept or something that we had never seen before. Up until basically the Superfly 6, there was always something about the Superfly that you could only get if you had the Superfly. But now with the Vapor 12 and the Superfly 6, they're basically the exact same thing. That's not to say the Superfly 6 is bad. I would make the argument that the Superfly 6 might be the greatest Superfly model of all time from a performance and comfort perspective, but it's definitely the least interesting Superfly out of all the ones that Nike has put out. And the Superfly 2 and 3 were basically the same thing, still more interesting than the Superfly 6 if you ask me. What I think they should do is, if they don't have anything super revolutionary to launch right now, give it a break. The Mercurial line will hold its own with just a Vapor model. It has in the past. I don't see why it wouldn't do it now. They've killed the Superfly line off before. Give it a bit of a break and come back with the Superfly 7. That is just something that we've never seen before. I've always been a fan of having the option of going for the Vapor and the Superfly when they're two very different products, and I really feel like that's how it should be rather than what Nike is currently doing. What is the value of your whole entire collection of soccer cleats? Well, if you watch the Boot Nerds podcast, and if you don't for whatever reason, there's going to be a little pop-up on screen that'll take you directly to the channel. Go and subscribe. J Mike from Unisport, along with myself, talking about anything and everything football boot related, as well as answering a bunch of your questions with new episodes every single week. Either way, we did actually make an episode talking specifically on this particular topic, my collection, Jay's collection. I guess just to recap for you what we talked about in that episode. It's really difficult to put a value on my collection. There are tons and tons of boots, and I guess it really depends on how you want to break down the value of each individual pair. If you kind of are a little bit more conservative, I'd say the overall value is $250,000. If you want to be a little bit more optimistic in terms of overall value, it could be as much as $400,000 or $500,000. But realistically, trying to resell every one of those boots, it'd be very, very difficult to get all your money back. And our general conclusion in regards to collecting football boots, if you want some real advice, is do it because you love it. Do it because it's a hobby. Do not do it as a good investment, because buying tons and tons of football boots, trust me when I say, is not a good investment. Joe Burchell asks, "Hi Jose, is there a difference between soccer cleats and American football boots? If so, what is it?" This is actually a pretty common question, and hopefully no one gets triggered because I will have to use the word soccer for the sake of clarity to answer this. But if you go into any general sports store in the US, you're going to find plenty of American football cleats, and some of them, not all of them, because it's clear that some American football cleats are more specialized, that have a very high cut, tons of ankle support, and they're just heavy duty. They're clearly not made for soccer, but some are low cut, relatively low profile, seemingly quite thin, and very lightweight as well, kind of like a football boot would be, or a soccer cleat. And the reason why you wouldn't necessarily want to use an American football cleat for soccer is because they're just not made for the same thing. Now, obviously, soccer cleats and American football cleats both have cleats. That's where these two forms of footwear are similar. The studs on the bottom that exist for the sake of traction, typically on natural grass, but also on artificial grass, because you can play both sports on both types of playing surfaces. Where the two differentiate, though, is that an American football cleat, the traction action is really geared towards simply just running, not actually kicking a ball. I realize that kicking is part of American football, that position being the kicker. It's usually only one or two guys on the team doing this, and typically the kicker for American football will actually wear soccer cleats because they're better suited towards kicking the ball, which we'll get to in just a second. The reason why the stud pattern is important in regards to this is because a lot of the stud patterns on American football cleats, because they are just geared strictly towards running, you'll have longer studs towards the tip of the toe that when kicking a ball, they could get in the way. And then there's the uppers, where you're going to find a more significant difference between these two forms of footwear. Obviously, a soccer cleat, one of the priorities of an upper is going to be the touch and feel that it provides on the ball. In the case of an American football cleat, that's really not taken into consideration because, like I mentioned, the players who are kicking the ball on an American football team, the kickers, it's pretty common practice to just go and buy soccer cleats because they're better suited for kicking. So basically, every company making American football cleats, they don't focus on the touch on the ball, period. The uppers are strictly designed to be comfortable, provide really solid lockdown, and just have good structure to them in general. And often, the upper on an American football cleat will be a lot bulkier, a lot thicker than what you'll find on a soccer cleat. So with all of that in mind, to answer the question, can you wear an American football cleat to play soccer in? Technically, yes. There's really nothing stopping you from doing that. You could call into question the legality of some of the stud patterns on an American football cleat and whether or not they are safe for use in soccer, where the studs are very likely to come in contact with someone else's foot or ankle or leg or face, depending on how dirty of a player you are. But I really don't see a referee kicking you out of a match for wearing American football cleats. I feel like that would be a difficult thing to do. Either way, the upper would be the big thing for me, where you're just not going to get a great touch or feel for the ball wearing an American football cleat. And again, that's going to vary from model to model. In general, if you're playing American football, wear American football cleats. And if you're playing soccer, wear soccer cleats. It's just that simple. However, I do recognize that there have been some NFL players who have worn soccer cleats rather than American football cleats for whatever reason, likely to be different and due to personal preference. They just like the way that they feel. Nothing wrong with that, but I probably wouldn't wear American football cleats for soccer. Mac Walton asks, "Hi Josheroni Pizza. How long do you think Nike and Adidas will last as the top of the sales board? As long as they continue to put out football boots, they'll remain the top two brands." And I guess I'll answer this question with a question of my own. If Nike and Adidas aren't going to be the top two brands, who's really going to knock them off? The answer is nobody. Charlie Hoffman asks, "Hi Joel, do you think Nike will release another Techcraft pack soon, as they haven't done so in a while?" I definitely think it's a possibility, and I'd actually be curious to see what a leather upper variation of their current lineup would be like, or at least a variation of the current boots with some form of leather implemented into the design, because I think it's hard to call a lot of these Techcraft models true leather upper variations. Some of them were just the base boot with a thin layer of leather on top, which did make for a difference in feel, but one that I would argue wasn't necessarily better than what we had before the Techcraft pack. And based on the fact that pretty much none of the Techcraft boots have really sold all that well, I don't think it's something that Nike will do again, but I would not put it out of the realm of possibility. I'd love to see it just for the sake of having some variety and having some new products to try out, but I don't think that it's a top priority for Nike right now. Why is weight so important in a football boot? Personally, I feel like the weight of a football boot has more to do with the feel rather than a true performance benefit. You can definitely make the argument that the lighter the boots, the less you are picking up with every single step when you're running throughout the course of a match, and you can't really argue with that logic. Technically, you're lifting less weight if your boots are lighter. Whether or not that makes for any realistic difference at the end of a match or during the last 10 minutes, if you're playing that full 90 minutes, I guess that's a matter of personal opinion. I can't say that I feel any fresher at the end of a match wearing lighter boots versus slightly heavier ones. Most models now tend to be pretty light, so the difference between one boot to the next is a lot smaller than it used to be. But I would say for me, the big thing that I notice when I wear a lighter pair of boots is just the way that they feel on my feet. I do definitely feel quicker. There is a difference in feel when it comes to dribbling the ball, I would say, but it's also one of those things that you kind of just tend to get used to. If you have a personal preference and you really value having a super light pair of boots, then make that a priority when picking out your next pair. But for me personally, I'm just as happy to wear a boot that is 9 ounces versus a boot that is 6 ounces. I'd rather my boots be lighter for sure, just because it is kind of a nice feeling to have your boots be nice and light, but I wouldn't say that it's a top priority for me personally. And then there's the people that swear that their super light boots make them faster, even though they're not fast to begin with. Anyways, guys, that's it for another SR4U Q A episode. If you guys enjoyed this video, please support it with a like. And again, if you'd like to ask a question for the next episode, go follow me on Instagram, SR4U_Josh. Basically what happens is I make a post asking you guys to ask me questions, and then from there, I just pick out the best one. So if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead and do that. As always, if you have any questions regarding any of the topics that I discussed in today's video, leave it down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.